A young boy sat quietly by a river, fishing in peace, until a mysterious wizard appeared before him. The old man offered to teach him the art of magic. Though confused, the boy eagerly accepted the chance to learn. The wizard, known as Mahilia Elders, began training his new pupil with strict focus, telling him that one day he would have companions who might fall into danger, and when that time came, he would need to rely on magic to protect them. Elders explained that magic was the art of holding the very air one breathed and transforming it into something special. When the boy released his first spell and struck the target, a bright smile spread across his face. Though the training had been exhausting, he was filled with pride. Elders was impressed, noting that most people took a month to master such a spell. Still, he decided that was enough for the day. The boy, impatient and eager to learn more, pouted, but Elders reminded him that rushing only spoiled the results. To clear the boy's mind, the master suggested they catch a fish before sunset. As they fished together, the teacher proved far less skilled with a rod than with a wand. When he struggled to reel one in, the boy couldn't hold back his laughter. After a brief struggle, they both fell onto their backs, laughing under the fading light. The next day, the boy, Alec Ygret, was seen studying hard, struggling to understand a magical formula. Elders assured him that once he understood the pattern behind it, everything would come naturally. Hours passed as they studied, the bond between them deepening through their shared effort. When snow began to fall, the two ended up in a playful snowball fight. Alec loved the peaceful days he spent with his mentor. But that peace didn't last. One day, Elders told Alec he was leaving the capital. He advised his student that if he ever had the chance to become a court mage, he should refuse it. Alec couldn't understand why. Elders revealed that Alec's late mother had once done him a great favor, and teaching the boy was his way of repaying her kindness. Years later, Alec studied at the Royal Academy of Magic, where he discovered that his master, Elders, had once been the Academy's most promising graduate. But after becoming a court mage, Elders had been banished. Alec realized that this was the reason behind his mentor's sad eyes. From that day, Alec vowed to change how the court worked, hoping to repay his master's kindness. To do that, he first needed to become a court mage himself. However, fate had far crueler plans. After years of effort, Alec finally became one of the kingdom's court magicians, only to be expelled by Prince Regulus of the Kingdom of Galina. His fellow teammates laughed at his dismissal. They mocked him for being weak, a mage who only cast defense and support spells while others charged forward into battle. Regulus called him a coward, unworthy of his title, and tore away his robe, stripping him of his position and pride. Alec was left in shock as his former comrades walked away, yet he didn't give up. He continued studying, determined to grow stronger and make up for his weaknesses. He even tried to help Regulus indirectly by learning the magic the prince lacked. But when Alec attempted to re-enter the capital, the guards blocked him, explaining that he was no longer a court mage, just another commoner. Soon his former teammate Lainey appeared and reinforced the guards' words. She mocked him again, claiming that despite his achievements at the academy, he was still a worthless braggart. When Alec handed her a letter for the king, hoping to explain himself, she tore it to pieces before his eyes. As the gates of the capital closed behind her, Alec's last hope vanished. Standing alone on the street, Alec reflected on his years of service. He whispered a silent apology to his old master for failing to reform the court. Just as despair consumed him, an old friend appeared. It was Yora Eisens, the cheerful companion he hadn't seen in 4 years. She embraced him warmly, happy to see her friend again. Upon hearing Alec's story, she expressed relief that he had left the corrupt royal court. Yora reminded him of the promise she once made, to recruit him into her own team someday. Without hesitation, she offered him a place in her group, Eternal Period, inviting him to join their adventures once more. Though hesitant at first, Alec accepted, moved by her faith in him. Together, they set out toward the city of dungeons, Fizzle. During their journey, Alec dreamt of Elda's words reminding him not to become a court mage. The carriage shook over rough terrain, waking him. Yora smiled and told him to rest. Their journey was still long. Meanwhile, in the capital, Prince Regulus learned that Alec had left the kingdom. Lainey reported that he'd been gone for 5 days and was rumored to have become an adventurer. Regulus dismissed him as a coward, relieved to replace him with a noble named Loki Silveria from Duke Fornius' house. He believed that with Loki's help, they'd conquer the next dungeon with ease and spread Regulus's fame across the world. Far from the capital, Alec and Yora arrived in Fizzle, where Eternal Period had its base. Before joining their expedition, Alec needed to register at the Adventurers Guild. However, the receptionist informed him that he lacked the required pass, a license to explore dungeons above level 30. Only those registered for at least 2 years could acquire it. Yora was frustrated, realizing that her teammate Kra had promised to handle it but failed due to her reckless attitude. Unable to register, Yora blamed herself but quickly brushed it off. The team was already exploring level 52 dungeons and couldn't afford to wait 2 years. Determined not to waste time, she suggested they explore weaker dungeons nearby. She welcomed Alec to Fizzle, ready to begin their next adventure together. That night, they ventured into a forest swarming with flying insects. Yora activated an enhancement spell, boosting Alec's speed and strength. He charged forward, striking enemies with precision, but the swarm grew larger by the second. When Yora moved ahead to defend them, Alec realized his magic had weakened after years of emotional strain. Still, seeing his friend in danger reignited his determination. He focused his mind and unleashed a massive fire spell that burned through the swarm. With his confidence returning, Alec fought alongside Yorha, their teamwork flowing effortlessly. When the situation worsened, he summoned a rain of lightning that annihilated the remaining insects. But their fight wasn't over yet. A giant earthworm burst from the ground, snatching Yorha's scepter with its massive jaws. Working in perfect sync, Alec and Yora prepared their counterattack. As she shielded herself from the flames, Alec unleashed a fire tornado that engulfed the creature entirely, turning it to ash. Their teamwork earned them a decisive victory. Yora praised Alec's strength, happy to see that he hadn't changed. Later, in another dungeon, the team faced a massive hydra. The lancer's spear failed to pierce its thick shell, forcing the archer to shoot an arrow to save him. The hydra countered with powerful fireballs and electric blasts, which Yora blocked using walls of ice and earth. But the relentless assault began to wear her down. Just when things looked dire, Alec stepped forward and unleashed an overwhelming spell and obliterated the hydra in seconds. With that, the group cleared the 68th floor, breaking the dungeon's record. As they celebrated, the four adventurers raised their hands high, shouting the name of their group, Eternal Period, the team determined to write an everlasting story. After toppling the level 68 boss, the group returned to the academy amid roaring cheers. News of their feat spread instantly. They had accomplished what no class before them had achieved. Rosa watched them with a mixture of pride and disbelief. Their movements were seamless, their decisions instinctive, and their trust in one another absolute. Though their armor was dented and their bodies bore fresh cuts, their expressions radiated quiet triumph. They had shattered the old record. The previous best had barely reached the 32nd floor, making their victory something the Academy would remember for years. Graduation arrived in a swirl of excitement and nostalgia. Rosa announced the final rankings with a proud smile. Rain placed fourth, her steady persistence finally rewarded. Krasia came third, her command of 2 magics earning grudging respect from even the sternest instructors. Yora took second, praised for calm leadership and unshakable defense. And at the top stood Alec, valedictorian, record holder, and the highest-scoring student in Academy history. Applause thundered. The four laughed and teased Rosa, the same banter from their Academy days, and Rosa pretended to scold them, though her eyes shone with pride. As they left the gates together, other students watched in quiet awe, convinced they had witnessed the birth of a legendary party. But a surprise followed. Shortly after graduation, Alec announced he would not pursue a life of wandering. He intended to serve as a court magician, seeking stability, safety, and a way to contribute through knowledge rather than constant danger. His teammates were stunned and a little disappointed, but they understood. Adventure was unpredictable and often short. They respected Alec's choice, trusting his talent would still shape the world. Years passed. The world changed, and so did they, though one promise endured. Yora's vowed to reunite the team. That promise came true when she and Alec met in a lively tavern at the city's edge. They toasted old memories, and Yorha, with her famously low tolerance, was drunk after a single glass. She launched into a rant about being barred from deep dungeon expeditions and promptly slumped across the bench mid-sentence. The sight tugged at something inside him. It reminded him of celebrations at the academy, when Yorha would drink too much and scold the others for holding her back. The peaceful moment broke when an arrogant patron at a nearby table began taunting Alec, calling court magicians cowards and overrated. Obsessed with his own grind set, he sneered at everyone. Alec ignored him until the man, losing temper, swung a bottle at Alec's head. Alec didn't flinch. A faint gesture summoned a shimmering mana shield that absorbed the blow. The attacker froze, then smirked and revealed he had recognized Alec. He claimed he wanted to test him. An adventurer's pass slid onto the table, an apology with a condition. Alec would have to prove his strength to claim it. Yora woke groggy and blurted the man's name. It was Leviel, the guild master. Alec was astonished. Why would Leviel, the guild's head, go out of his way? Leviel only grinned and led them to the guild's underground training hall, a vast chamber for rank trials. Once an S-rank mage, Leviel was notorious for brutal evaluations. Though reluctant, Alec agreed to the spar. Yora warned against fighting after drinking, but Alec waved it away. He still had mana. Leviel's demand was simple. Impress me. The spar began. Alec opened with thunder, lightning arsed and filled the chamber. Leviel countered with water, bending each bolt with fluid motions. Alec closed the distance and switched to close combat, but Leviel reinforced his body with mana and moved faster than Alec could track. A single punch shattered Alec's barrier and hurled him against the wall. Silence stretched. Leviel expected Alec to yield. Instead, Alec rose, dust falling from his shoulders. Alec recognized the truth. He faced a genuine S-rank warrior, but the realization liberated rather than intimidated him. After years of court rules and defensive constraints, he could now fight without holding back. Leviel urged him on. When Leviel moved in, the trap detonated, stunning him long enough for Alec to land a precise slash. Leviel only laughed and activated dragon-scale gauntlets that amplified strength and accelerated regeneration. His next blow cracked the stone beneath them. Alec narrowly avoided the worst and retaliated with more thunder, but the gauntlets allowed Leviel to shrug off the lightning and press forward. The hall shook as they clashed, Alec's speed and cunning against Leviel's relentless force. Alec realized the gauntlets gave Leviel near-endless stamina. He fought to create an opening and then pushed with a rapid barrage. Leviel blocked everything, taunting until his temper snapped and he slammed both fists into the floor, sending a shockwave that covered them in dust. When the dust settled, Alec still stood barely. His mana was spent and his legs trembled. He collapsed. Yora rushed to him, her healing magic glowing as she stabilized him. Rain arrived moments later, furious that Leviel had used full strength on an unranked opponent. Leviel brushed off the complaint. This had been a test, and Alec had passed. Rain carried Alec to a rest chamber. He walked slowly, and they spoke quietly of the years since the academy. Their reunion was brief. A guild attendant summoned Leviel away for urgent business. After Leviel left, Yora recounted what had happened to Alec in the court. Rain's face hardened as she learned Alec's former party had treated him as little more than a pack mule, forcing him to carry equipment, forbidding offensive spells, and casting him out despite his saving the crown prince during an ambush. The injustice stoked her anger until she smashed a bottle on the table. The crash jolted Alec awake. He managed a faint smile. Yora then announced that Leviel had allowed Alec to return to dungeon runs. Alec breathed easier, though pale from the earlier fight. Rain, however, wanted revenge to humiliate the prince's party for their slights. Alec refused outright. He would not stoop to forbidden retaliation. He wanted to adventure freely with comrades he trusted, not settle scores. Rain cooled, and a different plan took shape. Rather than petty vengeance, she proposed they become the strongest party in the world, untouchable and respected. Alec agreed. This goal was not born of spite but of purpose, strength that protected them and proved who they were. Elsewhere in the guild infirmary, the injured S-rank adventurer Krista received treatment. Leviel called an emergency meeting and summoned all A-rank teams for a rescue on the 64th floor. The situation was dire. Krejia visited Alec afterward. Her dual temperament had mellowed. She was steady now. Alec asked why she hadn't joined the meeting. She replied with a smirk and a reminder that he remained officially unranked. With a flick, she healed his remaining wounds, leaving him to wonder why Krista had needed bandages if Krejia's magic was so potent. Soon, Yora and Rain returned, buzzing with urgency. On the 64th floor, magic had become ineffective. Potions were essential. The S-rank team had been nearly wiped out, and Krista barely escaped to summon help. Alec asked whether Krejia would volunteer. She bristled at Rain for signing her up without permission, but the dispute was short. Yora reminded them that Alec would face the main boss, and the decision rested with him. Alec accepted without hesitation. They assembled at the massive dungeon gate. Tension braided with anticipation as the doors began to open. Rain looked back at her friends and declared that this mission would mark the beginning of their legend. They arrived at the dungeon entrance, a place where healing and magic were nullified, forcing them to rely solely on potions and agility. Krejia's teammates were trapped near the level 64 boss, but clearing every floor first would take far too long. Rain pointed this out, yet Yora revealed a crystal given by Krejia, an artifact capable of teleporting them straight to level 64. Alec immediately recognized it as a rare item, but Krejia's only concern was saving her guildmates. Yora warned that the level 64 boss was undead, rendering Krejia's support magic ineffective. Alec would have to handle most of the fight. Rain advised Alec to conserve his mana and let him handle the weaker enemies, not wanting Alec exhausted before the boss. Krejia reminded them that this dungeon was synonymous with death. Even S-ranked adventurers had perished here. Instead of fear, Rain's excitement only grew. With determination burning in their eyes, Yora threw the crystal into the air, and in an instant, the group was teleported to level 64, a dark cavern where skeletal warriors rose from the ground, weapons clutched in bony hands. Rain drew his black spear and charged into the horde, cutting them down effortlessly. Too easy, he muttered with a grin. More skeletons emerged, but he continued slashing through them without hesitation. Yora grew worried when he moved beyond her support range, but Krasia reassured her, confident in Rain's skill and his indestructible artifact spear. Alec offered to help, but Rain just laughed and kept fighting like it was child's play. Alec followed calmly until he suddenly sensed a strange presence behind him. Instinctively, he fired a lightning bolt, but when the dust cleared, nothing was there. Then his instincts flared again. He drew his sword and slashed through the air, meeting unexpected resistance. A dark figure materialized before him, the Grim Reaper. Rain smirked, saying he'd sensed it too but wasn't good with invisible foes. The Reaper struck first, forcing Alec backward. It attacked again, and Alec barely deflected before leaping beside Rain. For the first time in years, he felt the trust of a comrade at his side. That feeling reignited his spirit. With renewed energy, Alec's magic sword glowed as he launched upward, slicing clean through the Reaper. Its form shattered into mist and vanished. As silence fell, Alec realized Yora had known about Rain's reckless plan all along. She apologized while Krasia revealed it was Rain's idea in the first place. Alec simply smiled, silently promising to repay their trust. Rain shrugged, reminding them that they still had to survive the dungeon. The four regrouped. Rain and Alec led the charge, cutting through waves of undead while Yora strengthened them with magic. Krasia supported from behind, loosing precise arrows that covered Rain's wild charges. When the skeleton tide grew overwhelming, Alec commanded them to fall back and unleashed a massive thunderbolt that obliterated the horde in one devastating strike. When the dust cleared, Rain asked why Alec only used thunder magic. He remembered Alec once wielded many elements at the academy. Alec brushed it off, saying thunder was the fastest to cast, but Rain sensed there was more to it and let it go. A monstrous roar echoed through the cavern, likely the boss. After Yora reinforced everyone with strengthening spells, Rain dashed forward faster than lightning, with Alec and the two women close behind. They entered a wide chamber where a massive creature was chasing a bulky adventurer. Alec prepared to help, but Rain immediately recognized him, Loki of the Rechroma party, infamous for his arrogance. Krasia confirmed it, calling him a cunning support magician, though Alec doubted it as Loki stumbled and screamed for help. Rain ignored him until Loki tripped, seemingly doomed. Alec moved to assist, but Krasia stopped him. This was Loki's trick. A trap spell activated beneath the monster, erupting in molten lava. A chain of traps followed, bombarding the creature with searing flames. Krasia admitted Loki lived up to his reputation. Loki laughed triumphantly, but the monster's roar silenced him as it charged a massive blast. Realizing he was seconds from death, Loki braced for impact, but Rain intervened, saving him the nick of time. Loki stared in disbelief as Alec and the others joined the fight. When the monster struck at Alec, Yora raised her shield, blocking the blow so Alec could counter with thunder magic. The creature roared and turned on Rain and Loki. Alec fired another bolt to slow it down, but it barely staggered. Seeing the danger, Rain dashed forward, sliding beneath its legs to draw its attention while hurling Loki toward Krasia for safety. Yora ordered Krasia to guard him while she reinforced Rain. Once Loki was secured, Yora infused Rain with a surge of power. Empowered and fearless, Rain charged straight at the creature, dodging its attacks and leaping high to strike its face with his spear. The monster thrashed violently, flinging him aside. As it loomed for the killing blow, Yora raised a barrier, shielding him just in time. The brief reprieve let Rain rise again, ready for the final stand. Alec, regaining composure, began weaving magic circles around the monster, 5 at first, then 10, and finally 20. Loki watched in disbelief, knowing that even 3 were difficult to maintain. Rain bought him precious seconds, stabbing deep into the beast's tail. When Alec completed his spell, a storm of thunderbolts erupted, paralyzing the creature. Alec moved in to finish it, but the monster dodged and began charging its own spell. Krasia unleashed a blinding flash while Yora bound it with chains of light. Rain seized the moment, hurling his spear like a javelin that pierced straight through its skull. Even mortally wounded, the beast tried one last desperate attack. Alec stood firm. Channeling his master's secret technique, he invoked reflection magic. The monster's dark blast struck his barrier and rebounded with double force. Incredibly, the creature still clung to life. Determined to end it, Alec combined reflection magic with multiple circles, trapping the beast in a blazing inferno that reduced it to ashes. Rain finished it with a clean strike, slicing its head in half. Their brief celebration ended when Loki approached, thanking Alec and recognizing him as the former court magician. Alec admitted he had left long ago, and Loki replied that it was the prince's loss. Then smirking, he revealed that the creature they'd slain wasn't the real floor boss, just a sub-boss that chased him and got separated. The group froze in shock. The true boss was still deeper inside. Loki explained that the sub-boss had been a necromancer disguised as a black-armored knight, resistant to physical attacks. Turning to Alec, he presented a wand with a cross-shaped head, an ancient artifact that transformed into a sword in Alec's hands. Rain eyed it suspiciously, questioning Loki's motives. Loki merely laughed, saying Alec would be the bait in the vanguard. The others were confused until he clarified. Alec's unassuming appearance would lure the real boss closer, giving him a chance to ambush it and seize the glory of defeating an S-ranked monster. As the echoes of battle faded through the cavern, the group steeled themselves. The victory over the sub-boss was only the beginning. The true horror of Floor 64 still awaited them in the shadows ahead. The scene then shifts to the prince who had fired Alec. He and his companions were being chased through a dungeon by two caterpillar monsters. The prince could not comprehend how such a thing had happened, as he had never experienced trouble dealing with these kinds of creatures before. In frustration, he ordered Lainey to eliminate them with magic. She tried, but for some reason her spells failed to activate. The prince, enraged, called her useless and decided to handle the monsters himself. As he turned and swung his sword, the blade bounced harmlessly off the monster's body. Shock spread across his face as he realized his strength had faded. Lainey and the knight hurriedly lifted the prince and dragged him toward the exit while he struggled to make sense of what had gone wrong. His sword strikes had once been powerful and precise, yet now they felt hollow and weak. As he reflected, he noticed that his decline had begun around the same time he expelled Alec from the party. Instead of accepting that Alec had been an important contributor, he convinced himself that Alec must have cursed him in revenge. After escaping the dungeon, the prince went to consult one of the royal magicians, Vogan, to confirm whether a curse had been placed upon him. After a brief magical scan, Vogan informed him there was no trace of a curse. The prince was in disbelief, insisting there had to be one. He would never have struggled on the 30th floor otherwise. Vogan, however, explained that there was an anti-magic field on that level, which would have suppressed any support of enchantments. The magician calmly suggested that the prince had only felt weaker because his support magic was nullified. The prince scoffed, dismissing the explanation and claiming that support magic was the domain of cowards like Alec. Vogan maintained his composure despite the prince's ignorance, but found it strange that Alec had not warned him about the anti-magic field beforehand. After all, Alec was the legendary student who had once reached the 68th floor. The prince laughed off the notion, claiming that such a feat was an absurd rumor spread by commoners. Vogan chose not to correct him, knowing there was no remedy for arrogance. Suddenly, a guard entered the chamber, announcing that the king wished to speak with the prince about the situation involving Alec. The prince smiled confidently, assuming his father would take his side. Upon arrival, the king of Galdana began recounting a story about a man named Eldas, a former court magician he had banished years prior. Eldas, though a noble, had foolishly stood before the king of Galdana and warned that unless the kingdom changed its treatment of commoners and court magicians, a great tragedy would one day befall them. The prince interrupted, declaring that such insolence toward royalty deserved banishment. The king, however, clarified that Eldas was not a fool for his words but for his conviction. After being stripped of his title, Eldas had attended the Royal Magic Academy, silencing his critics through sheer brilliance and graduating as valedictorian. Though he could have pursued wealth or prestige, he chose to return to the castle and serve as a court magician. Even then, he continued to urge the king to change his ways, until his mysterious disappearance a year later. The king admitted that he had long ignored Eldas's warnings, but recent events had made him reconsider. That was the true reason he had ordered the prince to explore the dungeon, to see whether nobles were truly superior to commoners. Judging by the prince's failure, he realized he had been wrong. He declared that henceforth the kingdom would recognize talent regardless of social class. The prince was stunned, arguing that accepting commoners as equals would disgrace their family name. The king acknowledged that he himself was to blame for instilling such beliefs, but insisted that change was necessary. The prince countered that associating with people like Alec only brought misfortune and cited his weakened state as proof. At that moment, a guard entered and presented the remains of a torn book. The king explained that Alec had written a comprehensive guide to clearing the 30th floor for Regulus, but Lainey had destroyed it before he could read it. The prince's expression twisted in disbelief. Unable to bear the truth, he excused himself, claiming illness. After he left, the king quietly asked Vogan to assist Regulus however possible. Meanwhile, Regulus wandered the corridors in turmoil, realizing that if Alec had truly been skilled and insightful, then he himself had been the problem all along. His pride would not allow him to accept that truth, and the realization began to eat away at him. Elsewhere, Alec questioned Loki about his plan, uncertain why he was forbidden from using magic against the dungeon boss. Loki explained that he did not expect Alec to defeat the creature with the sword. He merely wanted him to pose as a melee fighter to catch the boss off guard. The others quickly understood, though Krasia voiced her confusion over the need for such deception. Loki clarified that the boss possessed intelligence on par with humans, which made straightforward tactics dangerous. Alec found it hard to believe but agreed to trust Loki's judgment. With the plan set, Loki requested Krasia's assistance. He intended to teleport them to their allies but lacked the mana to perform the spell alone. But teleportation magic was a guarded national secret, leaving them at risk if discovered. The situation left no room for hesitation. The group decided that if anything went wrong, the blame would fall solely on Loki. While Loki drew the teleportation circle and guided Krasia through the process, Alec turned to Yora, seeking her opinion on Loki's reliability. Yora admitted that she disliked Loki's personality but vouched for his capability. She recalled a large-scale raid 2 years prior that Loki had orchestrated flawlessly, saving countless lives. Encouraged by this, Alec chose to place his full trust in him. When the circle was complete, they stepped inside. For Yora, it was her first time witnessing true teleportation magic. Loki explained that this was a simplified version, calibrated to send them directly in front of the boss. He warned them to be ready for combat immediately upon arrival. With that, he activated the circle, and in a flash, the party vanished. They materialized beside Loki's allies who were locked in battle with the Dark Knight. The two had been holding their ground but were clearly exhausted. Ornus rushed forward to relieve them, engaging the knight while Alec attempted to flank it. The creature reacted swiftly, leaping into the air to avoid the attack before countering with a powerful charge. Meanwhile, Loki and Krasia worked together to evacuate the wounded. The knight's armor was impossibly tough, and though no human form could be seen within, Ornus attacked without hesitation. When the knight tried to leap over him, Ornus pinned its cape to the ground, creating an opening for Alec to strike. His blade severed the knight's head, sending the helmet clattering across the floor. For a moment, it seemed the battle was over, but the knight's body began to move again, sprouting tendrils from its neck. It was an undead headless horseman, a Dullahan, its former steed likely the monster they had slain earlier. Alec's brief moment of distraction nearly cost him dearly. The creature lunged from above, and he barely managed to block the blow. The force of the strike made it clear that the knight had been holding back before. As Alec struggled to hold the line, Yora unleashed a flurry of buffs on Ornus. Empowered, Ornus struck with renewed strength, knocking the knight backward. Yet its armor held firm, and its regenerative abilities made every victory temporary. Moments later, the creature retrieved its severed head, reattached it, and released an ear-piercing scream that rattled the entire chamber. The knight then kicked Alec with tremendous force, sending him hurtling across the room. Before he collided with the wall, Yora erected a barrier to cushion the impact. Alec regained his footing, realizing that without her intervention, he might have died. The knight's mastery of martial arts made the fight far deadlier than expected. Loki, still preparing his final spell, instructed Alec to hold out for 5 more minutes. Though exhausted and nearly out of potions, Alec pushed forward alongside Ornus to keep the creature occupied. When Loki's preparations were finally complete, a massive magic circle illuminated the area. The knight panicked and lunged at him, slashing through his chest, only to discover that the figure was an illusion. The true Loki observed from atop a tower as ice began to form beneath the knight's feet. Ornus stepped into a teleportation trap crafted by Loki and Krasia, reappearing behind the knight to deliver a powerful strike. At the same moment, Marmel descended from above, swinging with full force. Though the knight narrowly evaded her attack, it fell into another ice trap designed to slow its movements. Realizing that Loki was the mastermind, it began climbing the tower to kill him. Loki drew a magic blade and met the charge. Though he had been strengthened by Yora's 7-fold enhancement, the strain on his body was immense and he barely held on. Yora cast a binding spell to restrain the knight, but not before it landed a blow that sent Loki plummeting from the tower. Even as he fell, Loki remained calm. Everything had gone according to his plan. With a faint smile, he called out to Alec, signaling that the stage was set, and it was time to end the battle. Alec unleashed a massive formation of magic circles that lit up the night sky, each one humming with destructive power. Loki stared upward in stunned admiration. Even against their last boss, Alec had never produced magic on this overwhelming scale. But Loki could also see the cost. Alec's body shook violently, fatigue gnawing at every muscle as he forced mana through channels that were already screaming. Still, Alec refused to stop. He braced himself and initiated Thunderbolt acceleration, pouring the last of his strength into the attack. The blast landed cleanly, tearing through the armored Dark Knight and leaving its metal frame twitching. Even half destroyed, the creature strained to break free of the binding spell Yora had cast. Her control faltered under the monster's raw power, and she warned Alec that she could not restrain it much longer. The demand sounded simple: finish it, but Alec was drawing on reserves that no mage should have been able to touch twice in one day. His body wanted to shut down, his vision blurred, but he forced himself through the last cycles of the spell. With a deafening roar, it shot forward in a streak of white-blue light, engulfing the Dark Knight and vaporizing it instantly. Alec collapsed the moment the battle ended, finally surrendering to exhaustion. As he lay on the ground, he found himself quietly realizing how much easier survival became when he had reliable companions. Yora knelt beside him, insisting that they had relied far more on him than he realized. Without his magic, they never would have defeated the creature. Ornus joined them, relieved to see Alec alive and joking that he was glad Alec had returned to being the party's unstoppable powerhouse. But then Ornus abruptly shifted topics, reminding Alec of their earlier bet. Whoever collapsed first would have to accept a dare. Alec had just collapsed, meaning he lost. Fortunately for Alec, Ornus gave him a lenient penalty. From now on, Alec was forbidden from hiding personal issues. Whenever something bothered him, no matter how small, he had to talk to Yora, Krasia, or Ornus. Alec could only nod in weary acceptance. Krista arrived and expressed her gratitude for his efforts, and Marbel, even bolder in her appreciation, kissed Alec on the cheek. The sudden gesture stunned Yorha into speechlessness. Marbel invited Alec to join her in future dungeon raids, but Yorha stepped between them immediately, firmly declaring that Alec was their party's magician and not someone she intended to share. Recognizing how much Alec had contributed, offered to write a formal recommendation for him. Alec blinked in confusion at the mention. Ornus explained that to reach S rank, the guild required not only approval, but also a recommendation from an existing S rank party. He promised to secure the guild master's support as well. With their mission complete, Alec collected the Dark Knight's magic stone and the party returned to the guild. The receptionist congratulated him warmly, mentioning he had become one of the guild's most talked about adventurers. She asked whether he had recovered from his major fight. As he prepared to leave, the guild master approached and informed him that someone from the kingdom of Galdana was waiting for him. Confused, he had no reason to deal with the kingdom anymore. Alec followed her to the meeting room where he found Vogan. Of everyone he had met at the castle, Vogan had been the only one he respected. Alec bowed politely, but Vogan immediately confronted him, demanding to know whether Alec had intentionally allowed Prince Regulus to nearly die by failing to warn him how dangerous dungeon exploration was. Alec responded calmly. Even if he had warned Regulus, the prince would never have listened. Vogan sighed. Alec was right. After Alec's dismissal from the court, Vogan had been forced into his position, a role he described as a waste of his abilities. Alec asked if that meant Vogan had become the prince's official magician. Vogan clarified babysitter was more accurate. After Alec left the castle, Regulus attempted to clear the dungeon's 30th floor alone and was nearly killed. Vogan had hoped to lecture the prince into understanding the consequences of arrogance, but Regulus refused to take responsibility. Instead, he insisted that Vogan escort him to find Alec. Alec realized immediately the prince was already in the city. Vogan confirmed this, stating that Prince Regulus was waiting in the underground training arena. Though Alec had hoped never to see him again, he recognized that this confrontation was inevitable and perhaps necessary. As they descended the arena steps, Vogan mused that the prince's only admirable trait was his refusal to compromise his pride. He found the nobility's obsession with status pointless. Alec reminded him that he too was technically a noble. Titles meant nothing to him. All he wanted was the freedom to live his life. They reached the arena where Prince Regulus stood in the center waiting for him. He began by explaining that the king of Galdana intended to change how the kingdom was governed. Though Regulus disagreed, he accepted the decision to honor his father. Alec felt a flicker of hope that the prince had matured, only for Regulus to immediately ruin it by reaffirming his disdain for taking advice from commoners. Alec pointed out that Regulus's stubbornness had been the cause of all his problems. The prince refused to acknowledge this. When reasoning failed, Regulus demanded a duel, asking Vogan to serve as witness. He charged forward first. Alec intercepted the attack with his wand and was briefly surprised to see the prince wielding daggers instead of a longsword. Years ago, Alec had recommended daggers due to Regulus's small frame, but the prince had ignored him. Now, unexpectedly, he had adopted the advice. It didn't help. Regulus lunged too aggressively, lost balance, and crashed face first into the ground. Alec glanced at Vogan, who shrugged. He had only told the prince that if he wanted to challenge Alec, he would need to prove it in battle. To the prince's credit, he insisted on a fair duel and avoided dirty tricks. His daggers were artifacts powerful enough to break Alec's barrier in one strike, but that was his best achievement. Through months of training, Regulus had realized the truth. Alec's support magic had been the reason he survived the dungeon for so long. After Alec's departure, every attempt at the 30th floor ended in failure. Eventually, he read the restored pages of Alec's report, discovering that everything Alec had written had been correct. Accepting this truth only intensified his frustration with himself. He then demanded that Alec fight him seriously. Before doing so, Alec asked one final question, whether the king truly planned to reform the kingdom. Regulus confirmed it and revealed that their dungeon expedition had been part of the king's test to gauge the true power of common-born individuals. Suddenly, Alec understood why the king of Galdana had always treated him kindly. Realizing his 4 years in the court had not been wasted brought in quiet relief. With every loose end resolved, Alec activated his artifact and charged. Regulus stood his ground, trembling but refusing to retreat. At the last moment, Alec diverted his blow and struck the ground. Regulus demanded to know why. After everything he had done, every insult, every humiliation, he believed Alec would kill him to preserve his pride. Without superiority to cling to, he no longer knew who he was. Receiving mercy instead of hatred left him lost. The absurdity of the situation made Alec laugh softly. He had expected hatred and accusation. Instead, the prince sought guidance. Alec's anger evaporated. Regulus apologized sincerely for everything. Alec accepted, recognizing that the prince's flaws stemmed from upbringing, not malice, and acknowledging them took courage. Regulus returned Alec's old court magician cloak and handed him a letter from the king, an invitation to return to the royal court. Alec declined both, stating he was happiest with his party and would not leave them again. Regulus accepted this but insisted Alec keep the cloak. It was rightfully his. With nothing left to say, he left the arena beside Vogan. A faint smile appeared on his face. Alec watched him go, knowing both of them had finally found closure. The team lasting period was relaxing in their room when Alec suggested a city tour. Ornus and Krasia quickly made up excuses, a sudden stomach ache and a forgotten task, respectively, and left, clearly trying to give Alec and Yora time alone. Alec was irritated by their obvious avoidance, but Yora felt embarrassed by their transparent matchmaking. Alec then asked Yora to explore the city with him, emphasizing his desire to simply sightsee. Though flustered, Yora agreed. Yora first guided Alec through the bustling adventurer's street, advising him to be wary of fraudulent goods. Ironically, she herself nearly fell for an obvious scam when a shopkeeper offered her a pill to boost her fighting power for 10 days, which Alec prevented. He suggested sending Ornus and Krasia to shop, but Yora remembered the chaos of their last shopping trip where they bought worthless items with her money. Alec realized he was managing a party of well-meaning but childish adults. He then offered to buy the necessary supplies himself, which Yora gratefully accepted. It took a break at a cozy cafe, where Alec asked why Ornus and Krasia disliked Loki. Yora awkwardly explained that it stemmed from an incident 2 years prior, before Ornus acquired his ancient artifact. While Ornus was normally reckless in battle, he meticulously maintained his weapon. During a dungeon exploration lasting period, assisted by Loki and Riwil, helped an A-rank party fight a dangerous boss. Ornus was injured protecting weaker members but concealed it. After the fight, he collapsed on the way back. Loki and Riwil helped carry him, but Loki mistook Ornus' spear damaged from fighting for a broken disposable weapon and threw it away. When Ornus awoke, he was furious. Yora said the weapon disposal itself might have been forgivable, but Loki angered Ornus further by stating that the weapon was a disposable item and Ornus cared too much for it. Since then, Ornus and Loki have been constant rivals. Yora added that Krasia simply found Loki annoying, and both she and Alec laughed at their friend's pettiness. After coffee, they continued exploring. Yora spotted an expensive, rare elf bracelet that increased magic power. Alec offered to buy it, surprising Yora with his generosity. He explained that strengthening her, the team leader, would benefit the entire party. Yora accepted the gift with a bright smile. They spent the rest of the day visiting city attractions. As they watched the sunset, Yora asked Alec if he enjoyed Fizzle City, which he confirmed was more lively than Galdana. Growing serious, she asked him to re-answer a previous question. She admitted she felt guilt over asking him to rejoin the party, worried she had stolen his job as court magician and wondering if he was truly happy or felt forced to be with them. Alec reassured her that while he had unfinished business in Galdana, his priority had shifted to helping their party achieve the goal of becoming the strongest in the world. Yora teared up and vowed never to let him quit again, though she playfully threatened to send Ornus after him if he disobeyed. Feeling relieved and cheerful, Yora was happy he had shared his feelings. However, Alec then became serious, saying he also wanted to hear her true feelings. Yora was instantly shocked, assuming he was making a romantic confession. Alec clarified that Ornus had actually pressured him to open up to the team about his worries, which was the real reason he had confided in her. Realizing she had misinterpreted his intentions, Yora flushed with extreme embarrassment, while Alec remained confused by her reaction. The following morning, Ornus woke Alec by pulling off his sheets. Noticing a book, Ornus asked if Alec had been reading all night. Alec confirmed the need to stay up to date, but Ornus told him to fix his sleep schedule before tossing his clothes at him. Alec, feeling refreshed, asked Ornus if they should proceed with their usual routine, and Ornus eagerly agreed. They sparred outside with swords. Yorva worried about their lack of rest and warned them to take it easy, but they ignored her, fighting intensely. Alec explained he needed to close the 4-year experience gap he had missed. Ornus suddenly disarmed Alec and raised his blade for a finishing blow. Alec managed a counterattack, but his sword broke. Ornus admitted Alec's reflexes were impressive despite his lack of experience, while Alec pointed out Ornus' strong defense. When Alec asserted his plan to win, Ornus laughed and told him he couldn't win, demanding they fight seriously with Ornus' spear and Alec's artifact sword. Yorath thankfully stopped the fight before anyone was seriously hurt. Loki appeared, mocking their intense training and offering unsolicited advice. They ignored him and prepared to enter the dungeon. Loki smiled and revealed that they should treat him better because he had secured their S-rank promotion. Everyone was shocked. Yor tried to claim the promotion certificate, but Loki held it out of reach, demanding an apology from Ornus first. As Loki gloated over Ornus' misery, Krista physically disciplined Loki for his immaturity and handed the letter to Yor herself. Rywell offered congratulations to Lasting Period for achieving S-rank status. Yoren jumped with joy, feeling closer to her dream. Krista then reminded Alec that S-rank qualified him to explore the legendary Arcana dungeon. Rywell explained that the Arcana dungeon was even harder than the level 64 they previously cleared and offered tips. Krista emphasized that they owed Alec's team a debt for saving their lives and would help whenever needed. Loki interrupted, trying to flirt with Yorha and Krasia. They cleverly pretended he had offered to pay for a celebratory feast, exciting the boys. Loki was reluctantly dragged away to pay for the meal. Later, at the restaurant, Rywell initiated the celebration with a toast. While eating, Alec privately struggled with imposter syndrome over the S-rank. Ornus noticed his quietness, angrily told him to stop doubting his worth, and assured him he wasn't an imposter. Ornus passionately declared that the promotion was only the beginning of their journey to become the world's strongest and warned Alec against acting like a burden. Everyone, fired up by his speech, ordered more food, causing Loki to scream that his credit card had reached a negative balance. Later that night, Yora was exhausted from the celebration. Krasia noted that Alec seemed to be the source of Yora's happiness. The guild receptionist suddenly called Krasia away for an urgent patient. Krasia quickly went inside, healed the patient, and was thanked by the receptionist. Noticing many other injured adventurers, Krasia asked about the cause. The receptionist explained that a criminal organization called the Shadow Guild had recently been targeting adventurers. Livia then arrived with more injured adventurers, bringing in a girl named Olivia from Nameless, and left Krasia to handle the situation. Examining Olivia's severe scars, Krasia suspected she was attacked by melee swordsmen. Olivia suddenly woke up disoriented and was told she was at the guild for treatment. When Krasia asked what happened in the dungeon, Olivia became furious, ranting about a traitor. Confused, Krasia asked for details, but Olivia tried to get up to find the betrayer. Krasia told her to rest due to her condition, but Olivia insisted she could fight with quick healing. Krasia firmly refused, warning that pushing herself would lead to permanent damage. Olivia expressed her anger, saying Krasia couldn't understand, but collapsed back onto the bed from exhaustion. As Olivia slept, Krasia cleaned her numerous old and new wounds, realizing Olivia, one of the kingdom's best sword fighters, must have faced a formidable opponent. She cast a healing spell to speed up recovery. Exhausted by her efforts, Krasia fell asleep beside the bed and stayed with Olivia until morning. Meanwhile, Alec was reading a book on the Arcana dungeon when a small boy interrupted him. The boy knew Alec's name, but first insisted that Alec buy him some ice cream. At the parlor, Alec watched the boy devour the entire stock before reminding him to introduce himself. The boy revealed he was Lord from the S-rank party, Nameless. Lord explained he was curious about Alec's newfound strength, asking his opinion of him. Lord declared Alec to be the perfect replacement. Alec was puzzled, but the cheerful boy then invited him to join his team for their next trip to the Labyrinth dungeon. The next morning, Krasia entered Olivia's room to check her injuries, only to find the swordsman wildly swinging her blade while still half sitting in bed. Shocked, she turned to Leviel and demanded to know why he hadn't stopped her. Leviel snapped that the muscle-headed maniac never listened to anything he said. What bothered him more was that Olivia still refused to give any information about the Shadow Guild. Krasia tried to calm Olivia down before she tore her wounds open again. When Olivia finally stopped, Leviel pressed her again for answers. Olivia ignored him and instead complained to Krasia that she couldn't use her legs. Leviel immediately grew irritated that she was treating him so casually, but Krasia kicked him out so she could change the bandages in peace. Alone, she carefully applied healing magic and rewrapped Olivia's legs, assuring her that she would walk again after a bit more rest. Olivia eyed her curiously, wondering why Krasia, someone who clearly cared about the guild's safety, wasn't demanding information. Krasia gently answered that she didn't want to make Olivia uncomfortable. The sincerity caught Olivia off guard, and for the first time, she offered Krasia a genuine compliment. Krasia accepted it with a shy smile, but Olivia unexpectedly apologized for being harsh earlier. Moved, Krasia placed her hand on Olivia's forehead and kissed her gently to relieve her stress. Olivia's face turned red, thinking Krasia was teasing, but Krasia insisted it was a different type of healing magic. The gesture stirred memories of Olivia's childhood, her mother calming her tears the same way. Lost in the memory, Olivia softly called for her mother, startling Kracia. A moment later, she mentioned she was hungry, so Kracia headed out to get food. Elsewhere, Alec informed Yorha and Ornest that Luorg, the deceptively youthful elf, wanted to partner with them. Alec was confused when Ornest scoffed that Alec had been fooled by Luorg's innocent appearance. Yorha explained that Luorg was actually an elf, capable of living far longer than humans. Ornest then asked Alec about the labyrinth details. Alec explained that Luorg's party planned to clear the boss on the 72nd floor, the second to last level. Luorg needed Alec's help for the final floor and even offered Alec's team the dungeon core as a reward. His own party was too busy handling revenge against the Shadow Guild. Suspicious. Ornest declared that such a generous reward was probably a trap. Yorha disagreed, believing a prestigious leader like Luorg wouldn't stoop so low. But Ornest insisted on confirming everything with Olivia, since she was also part of Nameless. Yorha reminded him that Olivia was recovering, but Ornest confidently assumed Kracia's healing had fixed her by now. As they walked to the guild, he wondered how an S-rank warrior could be injured by the weak Shadow Guild. Suddenly, Misha, the receptionist, ran out in a panic. Yorha asked what happened, and Misha breathlessly explained that something bad had happened to Kracia. Inside, they saw Kracia stumbling along the wall for support. She collapsed into Alec's arms and explained shakily that she had been drugged. Yorha and Ornest rushed over. Kracia insisted she was fine, but Olivia had escaped. She suspected Olivia had gone straight to the labyrinth. Ornest shrugged, insisting they shouldn't worry about her. Kracia snapped, reminding him Olivia was still injured and the Shadow Guild was inside the dungeon. Ornest still refused to believe Olivia could be harmed, but Kracia remembered Olivia's warning about a traitor hiding inside the guild and felt her gut twist. Believing she had caused this by healing Olivia earlier, she ran out, determined to find her. To her surprise, Alec and Yorha were waiting outside, declaring they wouldn't let her face this alone. Even Ornest followed afterward, pretending he didn't mind searching for Olivia, prompting Kracia to tease him. Together, the four headed into the labyrinth. At the entrance, Yorha warned Alec that the labyrinth was filled with teleport traps. Before they could proceed, Marble suddenly popped up beside Alec and looped her arm through his, warning him that he might get lost. Irritated, Yorha asked what she was doing. Marble said she came to rescue Olivia but was too late. She also revealed that Luorg asked her to accompany Alec's group. Ornest immediately understood Marble was acting as Olivia's replacement. Marble confidently confirmed it, boasting that she was also an S-rank swordsman. She flirted with Alec again, prompting Yorha to shove her away and insist their team didn't need anyone else. Yorha pointed out that Nameless wasn't a real party, its members didn't care for one another, only meeting for dungeon runs. This confused Alec, so Ornest explained that Nameless members purposely stayed distant. Marble added that Olivia fit that cold image well, though she believed Olivia was kinder than she acted. She recalled a time Olivia agreed to explore a dungeon with her, despite initially claiming she didn't like making friends. Alec and Yorha felt bad for Olivia's isolated life. Marble asked to join once more, but Yorha refused and told her to alert the guild master that they were entering the labyrinth. Marble agreed, but before leaving, warned them that Olivia was in far more pain than they knew. After encouraging them to help her, she exited the dungeon. Just before the group entered, Ornest handed Alec a secret weapon, cautioning him not to break it. Inside, Kracia began drawing a teleportation circle, but Ornest complained she was wasting time. Yorha defended her, explaining the circle would let them escape if they got lost. Ornest responded by teasing Kracia for crying earlier at the guild, earning himself a powerful kick to the face that sent him flying straight into a teleport trap. Alec rushed toward him and accidentally stepped on another trap. In an instant, both vanished. Alec awoke surrounded by monsters. He fought them off with Thunderbolt until a blade suddenly cut down one behind him. Kracia had appeared. She explained that the secret weapon was a Mobius ring that prevented wearers from separating too far from each other. Alec felt both relieved and embarrassed. Kracia teased him, asking whether he preferred exploring with Yorha instead of her. Seeing Alec fluster, she laughed and assured him Yorha would be fine with Ornest. They continued through foul-smelling tunnels, fighting monster hordes together. Alec praised Kracia's swordsmanship despite her being an archer. She admitted she worked hard so Ornest wouldn't call her a burden. Kracia then teased Alec about hiding his support magic, saying he could never match Yorha at concealment. Alec accepted the jab with a laugh. When he stopped suddenly, staring at a bloody bandage on the ground, he muttered that they were getting close to Olivia. Meanwhile, Yorha and Ornest were sprinting away from a massive monster army. Yorha scolded him for opening a random door, and Ornest simply said he liked mysteries. To turn the tide, Yorha raised a giant earth platform for the high ground. Ornis charged toward the largest monster, but Yorha warned he was burning too much stamina. She cast support magic on him, boosting his strength. With renewed energy, Ornis cut his way through the horde and severed the boss's head. The remaining monsters fled in terror. Yorha praised him, but he told her to direct that praise to Alec instead, thinking Alec needed confidence. They soon came across the corpse of a mighty floor boss, slaughtered in a single strike. Ornis grinned, convinced it was the work of the Blade Master, Melia. Deep within the labyrinth, a Shadow Guild member named Gloria congratulated Melia on defeating the floor boss, but he admired Melia more for defeating Olivia. Melia explained he knew Olivia well, so predicting her moves was easy. Gloria asked why he betrayed someone he understood so deeply. Melia said he shared a similar purpose with the Shadow Guild and personally sought greater power, bored of being too strong. Gloria dismissed his reasoning as odd, but before he could dwell further, subordinates reported another party entering the dungeon. Gloria ordered them eliminated, and one man took a strange pill before rushing in excitement. Elsewhere, Alec and Krasia finally found Olivia sitting alone. She asked Krasia to heal her legs, but Krasia refused, knowing Olivia would run again if she did. Olivia then asked Alec, who explained he couldn't heal. He insisted they came because they cared, but Olivia didn't want Krasia getting hurt and tried to leave. Before she could walk away, she apologized to Krasia for drugging her earlier. Krasia suddenly muttered, "All swordsmen are the same," and demanded Alec stop Olivia. She refused to leave without answers. Olivia finally revealed she wasn't there because of the Shadow Guild. She came to find her master, the one who killed her mother. The revelation left both Alec and Krasia speechless. Olivia stepped onto a teleport circle and warned them not to interfere. Krasia leapt after her, and the three were transported together into a floor swarming with giant beasts. The group was completely surrounded by monsters. Alec initially charged forward, but the overwhelming numbers quickly forced him back. Recognizing the danger, Krasia focused on healing Olivia, informing her that she could attempt to create a teleportation circle to escape, provided Alec and Olivia could buy her enough time. Bolstered by this, Olivia joined Alec in combat. Alec, a technically proficient swordsman, struggled to hit the monster's weak points. Olivia, by contrast, effortlessly decapitated the creatures. Noticing Alec's difficulty, she admonished him, stating that an S-rank swordsman should not be struggling against such foes and needed more consistent practice. Krasia completed the circle and signaled their departure, but upon activation, the circle failed and collapsed. She realized the area had an anti-magic barrier, meaning they couldn't use spells until the source, a magic eater, was destroyed. As more monsters approached, Olivia challenged Alec to fight better, and he vowed to try. As they fought, Alec observed Olivia's quiet, efficient, and precise strikes, confirming her reputation as the city's finest swordsman. Determined to prove himself, Alec intensified his efforts and sliced a monster in half, briefly impressing Olivia. She complimented him but stressed he was far from mastery, advising him to focus on outpacing enemies rather than relying purely on strength. Alec accepted the advice, yet noted they were still trapped, as the monsters were endlessly respawning. Olivia asked Krasia if she had located the magic eater. She believed it was farther away, but the intervening path was blocked by monsters. Without hesitation, Olivia dashed toward the target. Alec immediately drew the attention of the remaining monsters to create a diversion, knowing he couldn't maintain the holdout for long. Krasia warned Alec about monsters attacking from the air. Looking up, Alec saw a vulture monster descending. He blocked its talons with his sword, nearly losing his footing from the sheer force, but managed to push it back. The relentless vulture continued its assault, while Alec was simultaneously engaged with the ground forces, pushing him to the brink of defeat. Resourcefully, Alec tricked the vulture into attacking and eliminating one of the large cyclopses, though the vulture itself remained a problem. Olivia reached the magic eater, which was a skeleton monster. She stabbed it through the chest and destroyed its belt, which promptly eliminated the anti-magic field. Olivia shouted to Krasia to begin preparing a new teleportation circle. With his magic restored, Alec cast a 5-fold thunderbolt spell, incinerating the surrounding monsters. The three quickly convened at Krasia's position and were teleported safely out of the monster nest. Once safe, Olivia asked Alec why he hadn't disclosed he was a mage, expressing embarrassment over criticizing his sword skills. Alec assured her the advice was valuable and promised to incorporate the training when they returned to town, prioritizing their present safety. Krasia intervened, warning Alec that Olivia's healing was temporary. Continued fighting would reopen her wounds and leave her critically injured again. Krasia then inquired about the traitor who killed Olivia's mother, prompting Olivia to share her story. The tragedy occurred when Olivia was a child. After her mother died, She was alone until Melia took her in and trained her in swordsmanship. Melia became a beloved father figure, a source of comfort amidst her grief. However, during a dungeon raid, Melia praised her new strength before inexplicably cutting her down. As she lay wounded, he confessed that he was the one who had murdered her mother. Subsequent investigation revealed Melia had indeed been a member of her mother's party. The betrayal of the man she idolized was devastating, and the deep scars on her back served as a constant reminder, fueling her search for revenge against the now vanished Melia. She admitted revenge was all she had left. Alec empathized, relating his own feelings of loss after being dismissed from the royal court, and insisted that just as his friends had supported him, Olivia also had people who cared. Olivia denied having friends, but Alec pointed out the obvious concern of Lorg and Marbel. Olivia admitted they wanted to help, but she refused to involve them due to her fear of Melia's terrifying swordsmanship. Consequently, Alec and Kracia offered to help her achieve her vengeance. Elsewhere, Ornest and Yorha were lost in the dungeon's corridors because Ornest kept triggering teleportation traps. Yorha remained anxious about Melia's ability to defeat a floor boss instantly. Ornest speculated that Melia was likely already on the final floor and that Olivia might already be pursuing him there. Ornest suddenly detected people approaching and instructed Yorha to be quiet. Members of the Shadow Guild then appeared, one of them eating dungeon cores stolen from other adventurers. Ornest and Yorha confronted them. The guild members were surprised, having been told the intruders were from the Nameless Party, but prepared to attack any adventurer. Ornest quickly subdued all of them, and Yorha used a binding spell to tie them up with chains. Ornest was unsurprised by the Shadow Guild's weakness and questioned the purpose of them eating the dungeon cores, as it didn't seem to enhance their strength. Yorha questioned the leader about the Shadow Guild's mission to steal the final floor's dungeon core, but he was initially uncooperative. Only after Yorha threatened to use the chains to strangle him did he admit his boss ordered the theft. When asked about Melia, the leader talked about Melia's amazing strength, recounting how he had defeated both the swordswoman from the Nameless Party and the floor boss alone. Ornest concluded that these men were low-level members and further interrogation would be pointless. He told Yorha they needed to reunite with Alec's group and ensure the guild members were jailed. However, the leader boasted that Ornest had underestimated the power of the consumed dungeon cores. Having absorbed immense energy, the leader instantly destroyed the floor, breaking his chains. He leaped across the rubble, grabbed the now unconscious Yorha, and fled, daring Ornest to follow him to the dungeon's bottom. Meanwhile, Alec, Kracia, and Olivia returned to the agreed rendezvous, but Ornest and Yorha were absent, worrying Kracia, since they had agreed to meet there if separated. Investigating, the group found a massive, new hole in the ground. Alec found this baffling, as the dungeon's walls and floors were supposedly magically reinforced against destruction. Olivia descended into the hole and recovered Yorha's hat stuck on a ledge, which she tossed up to Alec, confirming his fears that a severe incident had occurred. At the bottom of the dungeon, the Shadow Guild member delivered Yorha to his boss, Gloria, identifying her as the red-haired support mage they sought. When Yorha woke up, she asked Gloria why they hadn't killed her. Gloria simply replied he had his reasons and wasn't one for unnecessary explanations. Melia interrupted, warning Gloria to stop delaying and focus on their plan. Gloria dismissed it as a joke, insisting he took his work seriously. A moment later, Melia warned that someone was approaching. Before they could react, Ornest descended rapidly and stabbed the Shadow Guild member in the back. Ornest immediately turned to face Gloria, who reacted by creating a red sword to defend himself. The Shadow Guild member survived thanks to the energy from the dungeon cores and wondered how Ornest had tracked him so quickly. He then noticed the bracelet on Ornest's wrist, recognized it, and quickly removed the one on Yorha's wrist, and ran off with Melia to continue their plan. Gloria remained behind to delay Ornest, confident in his ability to win. Moments later, however, Ornest shattered Gloria's sword and stabbed him through the chest, causing severe bleeding. Just when Ornest thought the fight was over, Gloria rose to his feet despite the gaping injury. He then used his blood magic to completely heal his wound, declaring that he would now fight with his full power. Ornest was genuinely taken aback when Gloria's wounds sealed themselves almost instantly. The hole torn through Gloria's body vanished as if it had never existed, fresh blood pulling itself back together with unsettling precision. Still, Ornest didn't panic. To him, it was simply a matter of persistence. Regeneration always had a limit. As long as he kept attacking, Gloria would eventually stop healing. That was the logic he chose to believe in. That belief shattered the moment Ornest's spear pierced straight through Gloria's chest. Instead of screaming or staggering, Gloria threw his head back and burst into laughter. It was loud, manic, and filled with mocking delight. He told Ornest that he had just made the worst move possible. Before Ornest could pull his weapon free, Gloria grabbed the spear shaft with one hand and yanked it out of his own body, blood spilling freely, but instead of weakening him, it seemed to invigorate him. Gloria explained, almost proudly, that his heretic blood magic did more than simply regenerate his body. The more damage he sustained, the more power his blood granted him. Pain, wounds, and bleeding were not liabilities, they were fuel. With every injury Ornest inflicted, Gloria only grew stronger. Gloria retaliated immediately. His next slash came faster, heavier, and far more violent than before. Ornest barely managed to block, but the force behind the strike sent a jolt through his entire body. There was no mistaking it, Gloria had become significantly stronger in mere seconds. As if that weren't bad enough, Ornest quickly realized that Gloria could form any weapon he desired directly from his blood, reshaping it at will. Before Ornest could recover, a blood-forged whip lashed out and wrapped around his leg. Gloria swung him effortlessly into the air and slammed him down into the stone floor with brutal force. The impact knocked the breath from Ornest's lungs and left his body refusing to respond. Gloria laughed again, clearly enjoying himself, remarking that it had been a long time since he had gotten to beat someone as strong as Ornest. It had been fun, he said, but now it was time to finish things. Even so, Ornest refused to stay down. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself upright and summoned his spear back to his side. Instead of catching it, however, he stepped aside and let it fly past him, straight toward Gloria. Gloria dodged easily, already anticipating some kind of trick. What he hadn't expected was for Ornest to abandon his weapon entirely and rush in barehanded. Years ago, back when Ornest and Alec were still students, the two of them had been scheduled for a duel. During that match, Ornest had accidentally lost his grip on his spear, sending it flying into a wall. Rather than retreating, he had charged Alec with his fists. The duel ended abruptly when the headmistress stormed in, furious over the damaged wall. As punishment, Ornest and Alec were forced to spend the rest of the day repairing it together. Once they finished, Alec had complimented Ornest on what he thought was a brilliant strategy. He explained that techniques like magic swords constantly drain mana, and creating a sudden distraction by abandoning one's weapon could be extremely effective. In truth, it had been a complete accident, but Ornest had pretended otherwise to save face. This time, though, he really was doing it intentionally. But when it came to close-quarters combat, there were very few people who could match him. Even if Gloria became stronger, the more he bled, Ornest intended to outlast him by forcing him to burn through his mana reserves. Gloria, however, found the idea laughable, mocking Ornest for believing that physical strength could overcome magic. To prove his point, Gloria declared that he would show Ornest the true power of sorcery. He began summoning a being known as Anses. Meanwhile, back at the guild, Leviel was in the middle of a discussion with Lurg. Unfortunately, Lurg was far more interested in devouring every sweet within reach than paying attention. Leviel asked if it was true that Lurg had chosen Alec as his raid partner. Lurg confirmed it casually, adding that there shouldn't be any issues since Alec's party had recently been promoted to S rank. Lurg admitted that he was eager to meet the so-called five-colored magician rumored to be arriving in Fisizel. A mage capable of wielding all forms of magic was nearly unheard of. Leviel shared his skepticism, saying he preferred to believe things only after seeing them himself. Still, he knew Yorha and the others weren't the type to exaggerate achievements, so the rumors were likely true. Their conversation was interrupted when Marble rushed in with alarming news. She informed Leviel that Olivia had run off and entered the dungeon in search of revenge. Leviel was immediately concerned, but Marble reassured him that Alec and the others had already gone in after her. Lurg felt relieved, but Leviel's worry only deepened. Now he had to worry about Alec's party as well. Leviel had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to ambush and wipe out the Shadow Guild, but that plan was now in ruins. Before leaving to handle the situation, he asked Marble about Alec's magic. From what he had seen, Alec only used fire and lightning. Marble agreed but suspected that Alec was deliberately holding back. Leviel shared that intuition, believing Alec was hiding his true strength. Deep within the dungeon, Ornest found himself staring directly into a deadly beam of energy, unable to dodge. At the very last second, Alec appeared and reflected the spell straight back at Gloria. Ornest had never been so relieved to see him. Krazia and Olivia soon arrived as well, only to realize that Gloria was still standing. Olivia recognized Gloria's blood magic immediately and knew how dangerous it was. She offered to help, but Ornest told them there were bigger problems. He explained that Yorha had been kidnapped by Melia and a Shadow Guild member and was being taken toward the dungeon core. Whatever they planned to do, it couldn't be good. Krazia began healing Ornest while suggesting that Alex stay behind to fight Gloria. Gloria tried to stop them by firing another volley of death rays, but Alec reflected them once more, creating a dust cloud that allowed Olivia and Crazia to escape. Olivia even managed to throw Ornest's spear back to him. Enraged by the interference, Gloria prepared to attack again but suddenly collapsed to his knees. Exhaustion had finally begun to set in. Ornest realized that Gloria's excessive use of magic was catching up to him. If they kept the pressure on, he would eventually run out of mana. Elsewhere, Leviel, Luerg, and Marble entered the dungeon. Leviel warned them about demon cultists within the Shadow Guild, especially those bearing sorcery seals, people who would sacrifice anything for power. Back with Ornest and Alec, Gloria activated his sorcery seal, unleashing terrifying power. He blitzed Ornest and bit into his shoulder before Alec could react. Alec attempted to strike with lightning, but Gloria dodged effortlessly. Forced to change tactics, Alec cast a wide-area lightning spell, catching Gloria in the blast. For a moment, it seemed enough, but Gloria rose again, smiling. He explained that in this state, he could endlessly convert blood into mana. Alec's attacks were meaningless. Gloria launched a relentless assault, shattering Alec's barrier. Just as he prepared to kill him, Gloria noticed Ornest was gone. Ornest reappeared behind him. Though blocked, Ornest pressed on despite being brutally beaten. Gloria mocked him mercilessly, leaving him bloodied and broken. Alec was warned not to interfere, yet Ornest stood once more. With a final surge, he drove his flame-charged spear through Gloria's chest, recalling his brother's words that he would one day become the greatest spearman alive. Back in the present, Ornest burned another hole through Gloria's body as Crazia and Olivia advanced toward the dungeon core, where Melia awaited, watching with cold disdain as the Shadow Guild member reveled in the core's power. Refusing to back down, Gloria attempted to block Ornest's strike, but Ornest overpowered him, forcing him to the ground. Ornest admitted that Gloria was a formidable opponent, reminding him of a childhood friend he had given up on defeating after the boy fell ill. Since that friend could no longer fight, Ornest viewed him as the greatest fighter he could never surpass. In the present, Ornest declared his intention to cut down all the world's strongest fighters. By doing so, his childhood friend would remain the only person to have ever defeated the world's strongest. Following this passionate declaration, Ornest unleashed a final barrage of attacks, completely destroying Gloria's defenses. As Gloria fell, Ornest told him to take pride in being defeated by the legendary Lasting Period's strongest fighter. Satisfied, Ornest returned to Alec, who smiled to see his friend so spirited. Meanwhile, near the Grand Tree, Yorha slowly awakened from her slumber. A Shadow Guild member spotted her, and moments later, revealed the dungeon's core, taunting her with the precious resource she had been seeking. Suddenly, Melia slashed through the arrogant Shadow's chest, remarking that the man was being too loud. After the man fell, Melia retrieved the core and approached Yorha. He dismissed the Shadow Guild as useless to him and addressed Yorha as the Seeker. When Yorha appeared confused, Melia explained that a Seeker could perceive a tree called Eden. According to legend, Eden could grant a person's wishes in exchange for the dungeon's core. Yorha insisted she did not know what he was talking about. The wounded Shadow member growled, questioning why Melia was trying to kill him, as even a powerful Blade Master could not take on the entire guild alone. Melia smirked, revealing that provoking them had been his plan from the start. To become stronger, he needed to fight more difficult battles to gain new combat experience. Concluding that even the Shadow Guild might not provide sufficient experience, Melia finished off the Shadow member. As he walked away, he declared that he would simply create a new Blade Master with the strength to rival him. Looking below the platform, Melia found Olivia and Crazia waiting for him. Olivia angrily called out to Melia, who only taunted her for not learning her lesson. Seeing her companions, Yorha gained confidence and told Melia he was finished, reminding him that Ornest and Alec were also on their way. Melia, however, became interested only in Alec upon confirming his surname was Ygret, excited to face the son of Alec Ygret. Elsewhere, Ornest told Alec he would stay behind, as he was exhausted from his duel. Alec agreed, promising to save Yorha on his own. Ornest drank a health potion and warned Alec about Melia's strength, revealing that Melia had defeated the dungeon's floor boss all on his own. Ornest also recalled a warning Rosa had given him years ago never to stir up trouble with the Blade Master. He advised Alec not to risk his life recklessly. Surprised by this concern, Alec promised to save all their friends and teleported away using his band. Back on the dungeon's final floor, Melia calmly descended the stairs while Olivia rushed toward him. He mocked her, urging her to keep running as his time was not infinite. Olivia swore to make Melia pay for killing her mother, but she evaded him to grab Yorha and jump back to Crazia. Crazia drew her bow and unleashed an arrow rain spell. Melia easily cut down the dozens of powerful arrows with his sword, standing ready to face all three girls. Once free from her restraints, Yorha cast a bind spell on Melia. Although the chains restricted his body, his sword hand remained free. Krasia believed Melia had erred in ignoring Yorha, who was the group's secret ace. Yorha cast a sevenfold enhancement spell on Krasia, drastically boosting her abilities. Krasia then unleashed her most powerful spell, the Phoenix Arrow. Melia smiled, broke free of the chains, and dispersed the Phoenix Arrow with a single smooth movement, leaving Krasia stunned. Olivia seized the opportunity to attack Melia from behind, believing he had allowed Yorha's rescue only to test their full power. She struck, but Melia parried the attack behind his back with a single arm. He questioned why she hadn't given up on trying to kill him alone. Olivia retorted that she wouldn't let anyone else have his head and would exact revenge for the pain he caused. As she charged again, Melia noticed her body had already healed from a previous strike and praised Krasia's talent. He then cockily smirked, dismissing their full power attacks as impressive only for kindergartners. He expressed disappointment that Olivia had teamed up with such weaklings, believing she hadn't learned a single thing from him, and decided to teach her a final lesson by taking her life. His cold words triggered a memory for Olivia, a time Melia found her crying because bullies had mocked her mother as a weak adventurer and taunted her for being an adopted child. Melia had comforted her, claiming that loneliness made a person stronger and that she would eventually surpass her bullies and perhaps even him. Inspired, Olivia had trained with him until discovering the reality that he was the demon behind all her pain. In the present, Olivia fearlessly attacked again. Melia parried her blow and sent her flying into a wall. Krasia attempted to help, but Yorha stopped her, warning against fighting the Blade Master at close range. Krasia shot an arrow, but Melia caught it barehanded and broke it, noting it was much weaker than her previous Phoenix Arrow. He declared that this was the limit of people who lived in teams. Ignoring Olivia's desperate screams to stop, Melia took a stance and released a devastating sword strike. The attack ripped through the dungeon, creating a wind that lifted the surrounding river water into the air. As the water rained down, Krasia was stunned to see that Olivia had stepped in front of the attack to shield her friends. The strike cut through Olivia's chest, and she collapsed. Krasia caught her and began healing the wound. Relieved to see her friends safe, Olivia admitted she was weak. However, if loneliness was the price of strength, she declared she would rather remain weak forever and stay by her friends' sides. Melia remained silent at her defiance. Suddenly, Alec descended from above, launching a sword strike. Melia parried the attack and confirmed Alec's identity. Alec retreated to his friends, reassured Yorha that he was all right, and told the girls to take care of Olivia before rushing back to fight Melia. Alec unleashed powerful blows, demanding to know why Melia had betrayed Olivia's trust and caused her such suffering. Melia coldly replied that Olivia was too stubborn to go down after just one painful lesson. Alec finally utilized his strongest offensive spell, Vajra, summoning a giant lightning dragon. He drove the monster toward Melia, who blocked it with his sword. Exerting tremendous physical power, Melia pushed the dragon back and cleaved through the spell. Melia looked at the blood on his hand, pleased that Alec had managed to cut his skin, but noted the attack failed to bring him down because it lacked true killing intent. Alec warned him to stop fooling around, promising to show the true power of his magic. Alec recalled Ornist's warning not to risk his life but decided to go against his friend's wishes. He closed his eyes and began releasing all the mana in his body. Yorha and Krasia realized the danger, noting that Alec was emptying his mana reserves entirely. Alec asked Melia if he knew what a magician's original magic was. Knowing he couldn't defeat Melia even at full strength, Alec was willing to use a secret technique to protect Yorha at all costs. The aura of all 5 elements began flowing toward Alec's body. Melia was surprised. Although he understood the concept emptying one's body of internal mana to become a limitless vessel for absorbing surrounding mana, he never thought anyone would attempt such a risky move. Yorha explained that by removing his limits, Alec could now use all 5 magic elements simultaneously. Alec created 5 different magic circles, his wand absorbing massive amounts of mana, and prepared to launch 5 color release, his strongest offensive spell that combined the power of every element. It is revealed that in this world, thousands of unique types of mana exist, and attempting to absorb foreign mana into one's body is essentially akin to self-poisoning. Consequently, the common belief is that drawing mana directly from the environment is impossible, leading mages to create it internally instead. However, Alec breaks this rule entirely. 4 years prior, while the group was preparing for a battle against a Hydra, they searched the library for intelligence on the beast. The findings were discouraging. The Hydra possessed 5 heads, each representing a different element, and defeating it required striking all 5 heads with their respective elements simultaneously. This posed a significant problem as they only had 4 members, and Ornist could not use magic at all. Alec already mastered fire and lightning, but covering the remaining 3 elements proved difficult. Krasia, despite rarely using it, possessed an affinity for air and could manage with training. Yorha had a natural connection to earth and water, but her offensive magic was poor, regardless of how much she practiced. Although Yorha apologized for holding the team back, Alec did not blame her, as he had already conceived a workaround. He theorized that if he could draw upon external mana, he could cast any element without restriction. While the others found the theory sound, they noted that no one had ever successfully achieved it because external mana was toxic enough to tear a body apart from the inside. Undeterred, Alec dedicated himself to researching the concept, and his current state in battle is the result of that effort. Yorha explains that in this limit break state, Alec can tap into all nearby ambient mana, allowing him to unleash unlimited spells. He immediately launches a 5-element barrier at Melia. Initially, Melia stands his ground against the attacks, but he eventually slips up and is trapped in a wind-based spell. Although Melia cuts his way out, he takes a solid hit to the chest. This marks the first time anyone has managed to injure Melia, giving Yorha and Krasia hope that Alec might actually defeat him. Alec maintains the pressure with a barrage of wind attacks, forcing Melia onto the defensive. Rather than feeling frustrated, Melia appears thrilled, noting that it has been ages since someone made him work this hard. As Alec sends another blast his way, Melia draws a second sword and slices through the storm with a rapid flurry of strikes. He charges forward, cleaving through Alec's spells until his second blade shatters under the force. Dropping the broken weapon, Melia thanks Alec for the experience, stating that he only evolves when facing someone strong enough to threaten his life, acknowledging that he expected nothing less from a disciple of Eldest. The mention of that name catches Alec off guard, and he demands to know if Melia actually knew Eldest. Melia confirms that he knows more than a little and is aware that Alec has been hunting for their master. However, Melia deems the search a mistake, suggesting that while Eldest might want to be found, Alec is not the one meant to do it. He further implies that Eldest kept secrets from Alec, including the truth behind his mother's death. Melia asserts that a woman of her stature would not have succumbed to a trivial illness. When Alec demands an explanation, Melia simply smirks, stating the truth will reveal itself eventually, and resumes the fight. He draws power directly from the dungeon core, infusing his blade with its surging energy, eager to see how long Alec can maintain his limit break form. Elsewhere in the dungeon, Ornest explains the mechanics of Alec's form to the others. While it allows free use of all 5 elements, it turns Alec's body into a conduit for overwhelming mana, meaning he cannot sustain it for long without severe consequences. Ornest attempts to stand to help Alec, but his injuries cause his legs to give out. Meanwhile, regarding the threat of Gloria's remains resurrecting, Leviel turns to an ally who resembles a bald monk. The ally places a coffin before Gloria's body and activates it, dragging the remains into a nightmarish limbo to prevent any resurrection. On the bottom floor, Leviel expresses doubt that Alec can defeat Melia alone. Although open areas usually favor mages, Leviel points out that Melia possesses the dungeon core, the literal heart of the labyrinth, which boosts his mana to absurd levels. Melia was promoted to S rank because his strength rivals that of an entire party, combining master swordsmanship with high-level magic. Back in the fight, Melia unleashes a devastating mana blast. Alec attempts to shield himself, but the blast shatters his defense. Yorha intervenes just in time, erecting extra shields to redirect the attack. Melia continues his assault with relentless slashes. Yorha attempts to intercept them, but one attack breaks through, sending Alec flying. Exhausted and suffering from the toll of the limit break, Alec's endurance is fading. Leviel identifies Melia's spell as Mana Blast and devises a strategy that requires teamwork. Knowing he has been using Limit Break for 5 straight minutes, Alec realizes his body is near its breaking point. Melia hurls another Mana Slash, and Alec struggles to defend against the non-stop attacks. Yorha jumps in, expending the last of her mana to bind Melia momentarily. Alec uses this opening to fire a massive barrage of spells, fusing fire and lightning, but Melia tears through the attack effortlessly. Realizing he cannot win with magic alone, Alec listens as Krasia calls out with a plan to recreate the conditions of a past battle where magic was sealed. As Melia fires another blast, Krasia casts an anti-magic field. The blast vanishes, cutting off all magic and leaving only physical combat as an option. Melia scowls, believing Alec has lost his only advantage. Alec consumes a healing potion and declares that he is not fighting alone. He engages Melia with his sword but is quickly overpowered and struck across the chest. Melia estimates Alec has less than a minute before his body gives out. Recalling a lesson from Leviel about treating the sword as an extension of his body, Alec rushes back in with renewed precision. He dodges Melia's strike and counters with a sharp slash, cutting Melia's cheek. Impressed, Melia praises Alec for proving himself as both a mage and a swordsman. Suddenly, Olivia dashes in and lands a clean cut across Melia's chest. She demands to know why he raised her with care only to become a villain she must hate. Melia replies that she must take the truth by force. Alec and Olivia attack in unison, but Melia still holds the upper hand. As Alec's body begins to fail, Melia prepares a finishing blow, but the anti-magic field suddenly shatters. Sensing the return of magic, Melia attempts a mana blast, but Yorha blocks it. Alec seizes the opening to hit Melia with a powerful lightning spell. Melia endures it and prepares to retaliate, but Olivia blocks his sword, buying Alec time for a second lightning strike. Focused entirely on Alec and Olivia, Melia fails to notice Krazia lining up a shot. Krazia releases her arrow, sniping Melia cleanly from across the battlefield. As he stumbles back, Melia smiles, realizing the intense melee combat was merely a distraction to set up the archer for the final blow.